So when we first heard about COVID, to me, I had this feeling that it wasn't really happening. It was so surreal.
Yeah.
So having to balance, put my needs as a person, while also as a professional, while also being a mom and a wife and a daughter, it really had a big toll on what I did, how I did things. And it was a struggle to figure out how do I do my job as a professor while at the same time worrying or not worrying about those around me.
Yeah, it was definitely hard because you had all this uncertainty in your life and all this fear in your life. And then you still needed to meet the demands and the needs of the position and the job.
So now that I think about where we were and how we had to transition so quickly without any kind of preparation, I don't think anything really prepared us for what happened and how it happened. And so when we think about Maslow's levels of needs, we usually think of needing to have certain needs being met first. So we had things like safety and physiological needs. I think we all can remember the toilet paper shortages and, not being able to find milk at the grocery store. I did not want to go anywhere. And then sort of like thinking about how do I keep myself and my family healthy? How do we make sure that we are safe enough, right? The safety part to be able to just live.
I was very, very focused on those foundational, those base levels of Maslow's hierarchy where I needed to take care of my physiological needs, and my needs for friendship and connection were not even something I was thinking about or considering.
You brought a really good point about other people. I mean, I have really strong connections with, colleagues from work and being used to seeing them around all the time, going to have lunch and these things that we always sort of like took for granted that we couldn't do anymore.
Right.
I think that was probably one of the hardest things. You develop very strong connections and relationships with your colleagues while at the same time worrying, right? Whenever they got sick or whenever you heard somebody was sick and you wanted to make sure you were as far away as possible. So again, it wasn't that safety was just sort of like the second step or the second level. It was something that was constantly in my mind.
Just as you think you're moving forward in some of these needs that we have and creating a foundation where you can have some sense of security and you can have some sense of even joy, right? Something will happen and it'll bring you right back to those lower levels of Maslow's hierarchy again and those needs that you have. And then you're back where you started from.
And I think the key thing too, usually we thought of Maslow's as, again, sort of like stepping stones, how you need to make sure that your physiological needs are met first before you talk about safety and those kinds of things. And I think in some ways, COVID changed the way I saw those steps or those levels because it really wasn't linear. It was more of a cyclical thing where one day you may have had your basic needs met, you had toilet paper and you had water, but the next day you knew that there was nothing.
Back to your point, Carla, where, right, it's not linear how we're engaging with our safety, how we're engaging with this hierarchy of needs that we have. It's very circular because while you're starting to feel secure in one area, then something else might happen and you start to go back to those earlier needs and you're not quite at that space of self-actualization anymore. There's different pathways in and different pathways out, and how you reach each level and when you reach each level is going to be different for different aspects of your life. One of the biggest growth arcs that I experienced was resilience. Resilience when it came to my own needs, resilience in my ability to take care of other people's needs, and to manage my fears when it came to what was going to happen. As a family unit, we spent a lot of time together and it was wonderful. But then we also spent a lot of time together and it was challenging. I remember there were multiple times where I would hide in my closet from my child because I needed to get work done or I had a very important meeting that I had to go to. I felt so sad for my child and I felt sad for me, and yet I also had colleagues who were doing the same thing. And so there was a sense of solidarity with some of the other parents. It was great to be able to connect with people over camera, but then it also became very fatiguing. You feel like you're moving forward, you're able to connect and engage in your relationships with people and see people, and being led into other people's lives helped to have feelings of safety, have feelings of security, so that we can move to those higher levels where we can appreciate our relationships and our love, because it is important for us to be together. We'll do a Teams call or a Zoom call. But when that's your only option, you would navigate and switch back and forth between that being fulfilling and then that also being fatiguing and challenging. And so again, we're introduced to this non-linear existence of having our needs met and our ability to strive for self-actualization.
When we think about Maslow again, we're thinking about all these things that we have learned how to do to get to the point where we are. Doing everything we can or the best we can to be fulfilled. This very interesting circularity that exists with how we're able to meet the needs and move up in our ability to be and feel good about where we're going. COVID did change a lot of things, how we interact with people. But I think the most important thing is that we're still doing what we love. If there's anything to be learned from COVID, is that we're stronger than we think we are.